What's up, Mortgage Coach community? It is Friday Mastermind time. For over, Todd, is it like 245 times that we've done this now?
It has been almost 250 times. It's pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah, so every Friday, 9 o'clock Pacific, we are here to connect, to mastermind, to inspire you guys in the mortgage industry. We launched the Modern Mortgage Summit this week, so go check it out, modernmortgagesummit.com. And today we have a very special guest, someone's pretty unique. Usually when we do these Friday masterminds, we're bringing in elite top performers in the mortgage space, bringing in athletes, bringing in speakers. But guys, we got a coach. So we have a coach of the National Champions UMASS hockey team. He's going to tell an amazing story. I do believe the keys to success that you're going to hear from this man and what he's been doing, well, for more than a decade, but for the past 6 years at UMass, will be extremely valuable for every mortgage and real estate professional. So it's going to be a very exciting interview. Todd, you want to do the formal introduction and get the party started?
You know, it'll be fun. I'm going to let Coach Carvel unpack his story for us, but I do feel that, you know, Dave and I have been doing this modern advisor training now for quite a while. And it's just a lot of fun to bring someone new to our community who I think just tells a story that's so much different. When Coach Carvel got to UMass, it was considered ZooMass back then. It was a big party school. 5 years ago in a Division I, they were at last place hockey team. And I don't want to spoil the ending, but in 2021, they are the Division I National Champions. So I would just love to know, with your UMass story, Coach, and sort of how did you go from the worst to first in that 5 years?
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's great being here, Dave and Todd. It's been a pleasure getting to know you two guys. And I enjoy telling our story. And I enjoy it because I believe fully that success starts and ends with culture. And so our story from worst to first is pretty impressive. When I got to UMass 5 years ago, the team here had finished in last place in the conference, I think 4 years in a row. And our first year, we struggled as well with the team we inherited. But from day one, I knew I wanted to build a culture and how I wanted to build it. And we quickly turned things around to the point where in year 3, we played in the national championship game. Year 4, COVID closed down everybody's seasons, and we continued pushing our culture forward. And in year 5, we won the national championship game 5-0. So that's the short story. There's a lot of parts to it that we're going to jump into here, but it really is a worst to first story. And again, it's not because we had the best players, but we believe we had the best culture, and that's why we're national champions.
So, you know, before we get into all your, call it success principles and things that you learned, I'd love to hear, because when I listened to the podcast that you recently did, you talked about how you had a little surprise a couple days before the game. And if you could tell that little surprise, because winning a national championship is a big deal, a very hard thing to do, but knowing the circumstances makes it even harder. Do you mind sharing that with folks?
Yeah, this is, to me, maybe the best story example of our culture. As I said, in year 3, we lost the national championship game 3-0 to the University of Minnesota Duluth. They were the standard bearer in college hockey. And we had to play them this past year in the national semifinal. And so they were going for a three-peat. This is hard stuff to do at the college level. So we had to knock them off the top of the mountain. And a week before that game against Duluth, I was called and informed that our starting goalie, our leading goal scorer, and our biggest power forward, and then one of our other goalies, all were not going to be able to play because of COVID protocols. One tested positive, and all 4 guys lived together. And as I said, culture relies heavily on leadership. And as the leader of the program, and I consider my other coaches and staff leaders as well, when my administrator told me this news that we had to go in the national semifinal without our starting goalie, our leading goal scorer, and our biggest power forward, what I responded back to him, and I swear to God, I said, good. And I got that from Jocko Winnick, who was a former Navy SEAL, but it's that's our mindset here. Part of our culture is that no matter what adversity comes at us, good, we'll figure a way. It's going to make us better. I mean, it would have been real easy as the head coach to go in and be like, oh, guys, geez, we lost this guy. Boy, it's going to be tough. And the media kind of wrote us off. And they're like, Duluth, they're trying for a three-peat. UMass is missing these guys, important players. Boy, this is an uphill battle. We never looked at it like that. We just, and I don't think we've been building the culture for 5 years, maybe in year 2, we wouldn't have been able to carry this out, but 5 years in. And I said this as well, when I called my assistant coaches and I said, hey, we're going to miss these 4 guys. I swear to God, my assistant coach said, good. And that's just a strong example of the leadership. And I say this all the time, leadership trickles down. It's so critically important what you do as the leader of your culture, because people are looking to be led. Good people, especially, they want to see leadership in action. They want to see it. They want to feel it. And so my job as a hockey coach, I used to think it was about X's and O's and systems, but that stuff is really minimal compared to how important it is to lead with the right mindset.
So think about that, guys. Who out there has been on a team, and when you lose your best player, remember, guys, they didn't only lose their top goalie, they lost 4 players and still performed at that level. So I thought that was mind-blowing. And it really does speak to the strength of your culture. We build this call around, our culture beats your culture. So could you speak to that a little bit and how character is more important than skills? And then Todd, I'll hand it off to you for the next question.
Sure. So I don't want to take a lot of credit because I've had a lot of help in building this culture. And again, you build strong cultures by surrounding yourself with high character people. And I also have a mentor. I think it's important for anyone to have a mentor. It doesn't matter where you are in the chain of command. We all need mentors who are helping us to get better. And my mentor here is a sports psychologist. And early on, I'd call him excited about a recruit. Oh, this kid's really good. We're competing against good schools for him. And he would say, well, I don't care. What's his character like? And I'm like, well, I think it's pretty good. And there are other situations where, maybe we didn't want a kid and he'd say, well, what's his character? He's really high character kid. He goes, commit him, bring him in. So he reinforced to me how important it is to bring in high character people. And after we won the national championship game, one of our captains was being interviewed and they asked him, how did UMass turn the program around? How did you go from worst to first in over 5 years? And his immediate response was, our coaches care about character more than skill. And I believe that you build strong cultures on character. So that's a focus point for us. It's a beacon for us. Believe me, we still want high skill, but if it's not matched with high character, you're going to shortchange yourself.
Hey, Todd, before you ask the next question, you mentioned that your mentor is a sports psychologist, and it sounds like, character, which is the mind, it's who you are as a human being, not your physical abilities or the skills that you have. How do you, what message do you have for folks when it comes to working on the mind? I interviewed Trevor Moad last year. I don't know if you're familiar with his book, It Takes What It Takes. But he's a sports psychologist. Could you just give us a little bit of your philosophy on working on the mind over the body and the skill and your
Sure.
philosophy on that?
Sure. So in my sport, I guess in most sports, but in hockey, most kids coming through, we're a high level Division I program. So most kids want to move on to professional hockey, and we send a lot of kids on to the NHL. In fact, we were just named as the top development program in college hockey, as well as being national champions, which I'm as proud of, that we're being recognized for our development. So I have a lot of kids come in here and then like, how are you going to prepare me for the NHL? And what I tell them is I'm going to develop your character. I don't say I'm going to develop your slap shot. I'm not going to develop your skating stride. I'm going to develop your character, because as your character develops, just like culture, you're going to become a better hockey player. And so how do we develop character? We hold our kids to really, really high standards, and there's no gray area. So we have the highest, our hockey teams have the highest GPA of any male team on campus for 3 years in a row. We do a ton of community service. Our kids, I get so many emails from faculty and staff saying your kids are the most respectful, they're the best kids. And that's what it is. Like, so we're developing character because that builds the culture. And it's important that you get kids that have had to earn things in life. But, a lot of our kids haven't lived off skill. They've lived off their character. They've fought through things. And I think that's when you deal with adversity, the situation with Duluth, where we lost those 4 players, our guys, again, the leadership trickles down, but they get this every day. We keep stressing a high standard and dealing with adversity. And you can't just flip the switch when you get to a situation where, oh God, this is big adversity, how are we going to handle it? You have to basically have them experience it every day. It's not adversity, but asking players to really hold themselves to high standards, it's sacrifice. It's not adversity, it's sacrifice. And they just continually experience that, and that practice at it becomes secondary to them. And all that ultimately leads to them becoming better people and better hockey players.
That is so huge. And of course, you all have to notice that over Greg's right shoulder is the national championship trophy. So love seeing that. And I love that you mentioned that when your players are interviewed, they actually really espouse your principles. They actually feel it. So I know that character is really important. What other principles are you passionate about?
Really passionate about common purpose. I think as a leader, there's a quote, there's a couple of things. I think as a leader, one of the quotes that I love is, dream no small dreams, for they have no power to move the hearts of men. I say that all the time. Like, as a leader, you have to have big beliefs, big dreams, achievable, but also inspiring. And common purpose to me is very powerful. Every team I've been part of that's had success, we've all had a common purpose that we all believe in. And one of my other favorite quotes regarding leadership and purpose is, purpose propels and moves people, and moving people is the purpose of the leader. And so through our 5 years, we've had our common purpose changes, because our common purpose is kind of a goal that we're trying to get to. And then once you achieve it, you got to change that. And you have to get players or your employees all believing in the common purpose. And again, it's usually it's a high standard you're trying to achieve. Our common purpose here at the beginning, when we could barely win a hockey game, was just to compete hard and earn the respect of our opponent. That literally, it wasn't, we want to win the game. We couldn't win. Our first year, we lost our last 17 games in a row. So our purpose couldn't be, hey, we're going to be the champions. It wasn't even, let's win the game. It's, let's play hard enough that the other team has to work hard to beat us. And then, after a year and a half, we started winning games. So we changed the common purpose. So to me, common purpose really, it unites and it inspires. And it's, as a leader, I think coming up with a common purpose that motivates and inspires your group is one of the most powerful things you can do.
So you mentioned your common purpose when you came in and took over. Would you mind telling us what it evolved to and what it is today?
Sure. So when I came in, it was to command respect. And to me, that's a very strong, powerful common purpose. Like, everybody in life wants to be respected. And when you're a last place team, when you're a struggling, group, just to command respect to me is a strong common purpose. So we went from that. The next thing we wanted to be the gold standard on our campus. We're a Division I university. We have big time football, big time basketball, big time lacrosse. We wanted to be the program on campus that the other programs looked up at. And so that required being the best team academically, doing the most community service, not being arrogant, being humble around campus. And like I mentioned to you guys before, is just creating a reputation around campus. Like, hey, we want to be like the hockey team. And so after 3 years, we had the highest GPA. We played in the national championship games. So we were having success on the ice and in the classroom, in the community. So our next common purpose was to be the gold standard of college hockey. We had lost in the national championship game. University of Minnesota Duluth was the gold standard. They proved it to us. They showed it to us. And we had 2 years to really work on our culture. And 2 years later, we became the national champions. So now we are currently the gold standard of college hockey. And I won't share with you guys our common purpose now because it's in our house and it stays in our house until we achieve it.
Love that. Well, I know in the podcast I listened to, you also said, my common purpose is creating better people, and better people are better athletes. Better athletes win championships. I don't think you said exactly like that, but you did say it's to create better people. So I admire that. And I push everybody in the mortgage business, guys. We got to go beyond the transaction. And so at the consumer level, you need to deliver an amazing experience that helps that family's overall financial well-being, not just sell debt and monthly payment and, hey, you qualify for this loan, but help that family like, okay, you qualify for this loan and how can you get out of debt? And then bringing that back into your team, make better people, not just better processors and better loan partners. So I think that really applies well. And I love that. Todd, what do you think the next question should be?
It's funny. Mark Robertson was thinking the same thing I was thinking. He asked, how do you co-create that common purpose and get buy-in from the team? Is this you and your other coaches? Is it just you, or do you guys get the team involved?
It's been just me. I think this is another segment, is when you're the leader, you have to come up with the blueprint. You have to provide the vision. You can ask for help, but I just haven't. It's been the common purpose has primarily come from me, and for whatever reason, I feel that's one of my strengths, is to come up with that common purpose and or the vision. And then the next part of that is a term that I know you guys have heard me use, is clarity of vision. It's one thing for me to believe what I think the common purpose of the team should be, but then I have to sell it to them. I have to get my players to believe in it, my staff. And again, I've got about 40 people that are in our program, but that's critically important, that I have a vision, but I can sell it to the point where every player is like, yes, this is our vision. This is our identity. This is how we want to do things. So, I believe as the leader, you can rely on other people, but it's ultimately your job. And then you have to live it. Every program has core values. I'm sure every business has core values. How many businesses, how many teams actually live those core values? We have 5 core values. And when I got here, you asked about, do you incorporate? We sat down with the team the first year and talked about what should our core values be. And so we did it as a program. We came up with the core values. That year, we won 5 games. We lost 29. I threw those values out. I said, okay, I'm the leader of this team. These are the core values. And so we changed, a good percentage of them. And again, I have to believe, it has to come from me. I have to believe in them, believe they're important. I have to live them. We use the phrase, you got to live and breathe your core values. You got to bring them off the wall. If you walk around our locker room, there's no quotes. There's no, let's win this one for the Gipper. There's no, whatever quote, inspiring quote you think is great will not go on our walls. The only thing you'll see on our walls is our core values and our identity. And again, our meeting room, the only thing in the meeting room is our core values. And I have to be able to pull them off the wall and breathe life into them. And I've read that the best businesses, the best companies are the ones who really live their core values. And I won't share all of them, but the most important core value to me is connection. And of our 5, connection is the ultimate. Nothing else in our culture happens or transpires if I don't build strong connection with my staff, with my players, and creating unity through this connection. And I know you guys like the term that I use, uniquely seen. I feel connection, true connection, is when I can get my players to believe that they're uniquely seen, that they feel that from me. They don't think that I'm looking at them as a right winger or a defenseman or a goalie, that I'm looking at them as a human being, that they feel that they're understood, they're valued, they're appreciated. Because when you do that, they buy in. It's human connection. And I feel for players who don't have coaches like that, who have coaches or employers that, like you said, David, that it's not transactional. It's, nothing should be transactional. It should be human interaction. And that's where I think the connection between business and sports really is. And people have been telling me forever to watch Ted Lasso, and I was for months I needed to get the subscription. And so last month I watched Ted Lasso, and I was like, he just told all the secrets. There they are. Like, here's a football coach coming in to coach a soccer team, admittedly said, I don't know anything about soccer. I don't care if we win or lose. I'm just trying to create better people. And I was like, God damn it. Ted Lasso just shared all the secrets to coaching. So I feel the same way. Culture, connection is the most important thing. You want people to feel positive emotions, feel part of it. And believe me, as the guy in the top of the ladder, I have a ton of control over this. And I think it's the most important thing.
I love this conversation. And I love that phrase, uniquely seen. I'd never heard those 2 words put together, but you articulated something that will, like, that's it. That is leadership at the highest level. That is selling. Guys, you're on the mortgage business. You're leading teams and you're leading people, but you're also connecting with families. And I know one thing for sure is, if you as a mortgage professional leave a family member who's buying a new home or refinancing, if they feel uniquely seen by you, they're going to do business with you. And they're going to give you a 5-star review, assuming you execute. If you can help a realtor, a referral partner feel uniquely seen by you, you got a loyal partner. And so I just love that term, because it's both leadership with your own team, and it's also a great sales strategy. So a lot of folks, we got a lot of comments on that. They're loving it. Hey guys, I also want to make sure you guys didn't miss earlier, before he went into the connection and that, he talked about how everything on all of our walls it's our language, it's our beliefs, it's our mantras. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody tears down quotes from Vince Lombardi or outside folks. I'll leave that to you in your own leadership. But I would absolutely push everybody, like, let's create our own language. Let's get up our own stuff. I thought that was a really powerful suggestion and idea. Todd, anything you want to play off of that?
Well, you talked about the fact that you're the leader and you have to lead by example. And one of the things that you had mentioned, and it's a book I'm in the middle of, was a book legacy that you give to all of your new recruits. And one of the things they talk about there is sweeping the shed. Do you mind talking about how you represent that within your organization?
Sure. So as Todd said, we use the book Legacy by James Kerr. It's about the All Blacks rugby team, and they're the most successful team in sports over the last century. And one of the chapters, it's an outstanding book. We give it to all our freshmen as they come in. It's a really good way to introduce culture and being a good teammate at their level. And also for leaders, it's a great way. It's a great book about how to form a culture and run a program. But one of my favorite chapters is Sweep the Sheds. And we use that terminology, we use that language And to me, sweep the sheds is about two things. Sweeping the sheds, it means no one's too big to do the little things. And when I came into college sports, when you were a freshman, you were at the bottom of the ladder. Like, right, you cleaned the bus, you did all the grunt work. It really, unity is not part of sweeping the sheds. And so it's my job again as the leader. We use the term sweep the sheds a lot. And what that means is if I walk into the locker room and there's tape ball not in the garbage, I go over and I pick it up and I throw it in the garbage. And I hope that the whole team sees this, that I'm not too big to be able to, pick up garbage. The other example that I use is when we get off the bus after road trips, it's usually in the middle of winter, usually around, after midnight, and we're all tired. And as the coach, I could probably just get off the bus and get in my car and go home. But what I do, and what all of us coaches do, is we go off the bus first, we open it up and we put bags on our back and we carry the guys' equipment into the locker room. That's sweeping the sheds. I'm not too big to do the little things. So it's about humility and unity to me. Obviously I'm the leader, but it doesn't mean that I can't pick up, I can't do the little things. And that provides unity. Believe me, when I was a freshman, I was a grunt. I was made to do I was belittled. I was all those things that lead to poor human interaction. And how do you think you're going to get the best out of your group when you're dehumanizing certain people? So sweep the sheds is about unity. It's about humility. It's we're all in this together. And I hate caste systems where certain people believe that they don't have to do certain things. So when our guys, we have a competition on the ice, the coaches will usually be on one team or the other. If your team loses, guess what? You're doing the push-ups, so you're doing the sprints with a losing team. You're in this together. What a strong statement that is to your players is, hey, boys, I'm in this with you. I've got your back. You got my back. And again, to me, that's culture. And, high character people, want to be in situations like that.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned that book, and I'm pretty much done. I think I've got a half hour left in the audiobook, and loved it. And I loved it so much, I bought a copy for my son. And you inspired me because, I have purchased books for him before and just, hey, giving him a 1 minute, you should read this. But because of what you said in terms of how you put a note in those books, I really took some time and wrote, a message to him so that one, he would know that I uniquely see him. I mean, he knows I uniquely see him, but I said some things and put it in writing that I'd never put in writing. And just, first of all, I felt good. I could saw it when he read the book, and he was just like, grinning ear to ear. But could you tell that story? Because I think, first of all, I think it's a book that everybody in the mortgage industry and real estate industry, and anybody that, like, if you want to be part of a high performing team, read this book. You want to lead and create a high performing team, read this book. It's really exceptional. So would you mind telling how you give that to your team? Because I think that's pretty powerful.
Sure. I'm sure everybody's the same. When I have a book and I open it up and there's a message written in the first page, if we're lucky to get a book from an author's written, a note, it feels pretty special. So the first day our freshmen are on campus, they all come in the summertime to train. I meet with them and we introduce the core values, and then I give each of them the James Kerr book. I've recommended this book so often, and people told me they buy it. James Kerr should be giving me a kickback on how many books are being sold, but I give him a ton of credit. It's an outstanding book. But I know each player enough through recruiting to know enough about them that I can write inside each book a unique message to that player. And my hope is that years down the road, they open that book and they read that message, and it takes them back to the first day of their introduction to our team and our culture. And it's the first example of being uniquely seen. When they read that, the hope is that they read it and like, boy, wow, Coach He's got a sense of who I am and what I need. And so this book is a great book, but the fact that it has this unique message to them, and it's the first thing they receive when they come into our culture, and it's the first sense that they get that I'm going to be uniquely seen here. And because that, as we've talked about, if you feel uniquely seen, it makes you want to be committed to the cause, committed to that common purpose. And if I can get that common purpose and their commitment to that, and their belief, and that's what leads to success. You know, the human interaction really inspires and motivates people. And if they're chasing a dream that they believe in, and they believe it, you know, and that the group can do it together. It's why I coach. I don't coach to win games. And again, I'll go back to Ted Lasso. I don't care if we win or lose. I really don't. It's great that we're national champions. It's great that we win a lot of hockey games. I get upset when we win if I don't think we played well enough. You know, it goes back to standards and high standards and no gray area. Like, there's another thing you won't ever hear me say, expectations. I've learned to take that out of my vocabulary, because expectations, when you say, these are my expectations, you're saying, this is what I hope happens. Well, I really hope you do this. And then you're creating gray area. If you say, this is the standard, there's no gray area. You do this, you either do it or you don't. I'm not going to hope you do it. This is the standard here. Okay. I'm not going to say, well, this is our expectation. If you don't reach it, oh, you're creating gray area. So I've learned not to use that word expectations. I only use the word standard. You know, I'm 51 years old. I've coached forever. I keep, you know, you got to keep learning. You know, you got to keep digging. I've done more after winning the national championship. I've done more this summer to keep driving our culture forward. And again, every year I do less and less systems breakdown. I do more and more reading, more and more communication about how to strengthen our culture, because all success is a byproduct of the culture.
That is so powerful. So I want to make sure everybody pulled that expectations versus standards. Another thing, I can't remember who, it was a podcast I listened to, and I've had a coach that did some coaching where it was about expectations versus agreements. And I think, you know, standards and agreements are probably the same. Standards are, you know, high goals that you've collectively aligned around as a team, but expectations, you know, are really poisonous when it comes to leadership and management. Hey, Todd, before we do the next question, I want to remind everybody, guys, the Modern Mortgage Summit is available, guys. You can sign up today. Go to modernmortgagesummit.com. And we are excited to share that Coach Carvel is going to create a less than 20-minute presentation that will probably embody a lot of the concepts that we've talked about in this podcast. But it's going to be designed to help you as a mortgage professional upgrade your leadership. And it's going to be micro content. It's going to be just a really tight, less than 20-minute presentation. So, Coach, thanks for agreeing to do that. We're super grateful. And while you're educating and inspiring loan officers, they're helping millions of families get mortgages and achieve homeownership. So you're really making a difference. Todd, anything you want to mention about this before we get into our next question?
I think probably the only thing I would mention is, for those of you who didn't attend last year, it's only $100. It's $99 to jump in. And then this year, we had so many people last year that wanted more than 30 days access. So at the $100, you get 30 days access to the content. And last year we sold the annual pass for another $100. So this year you can actually buy it discounted up front at $149, and you get the content, the live event, plus access to the content. In secret, there's going to be some bonus content that you'll get and have access to for a full year. So I'm super excited about that. And, you know, we've already had a bunch of leaders in the industry reach out who want to buy bulk tickets for their team. So if you're interested in that, reach out to Dave or myself. And individuals, just go to modernmortgagesummit.com and tickets are available now.
Cool. So can't wait to see how you put that together. So, you know, Todd is the founder and CEO of Win by Noon. And, we have this just philosophy here at Mortgage Coach, and the community that we try to drive is like win by noon. That means start your day right, win your morning, win by noon. Are you a early morning guy? I mean, do you kind of have, you may not call it win by noon, but is that a principle you have and something you strive for?
I would say that I'm more, I'm about quality. Everything that we do around here, I want it to be high quality. I don't want it to be high quantity. I don't want it to be, I believe in efficiency and high quality. I'm not a micromanager by any means. I hire good people. They know what the standards are, and then it's up to them. I don't care. My assistants know they can come at 6 a.m. They can come at 10:30. I don't care. I'll know if they're doing their job well. And it's the same with our players. We don't practice for a long time. We'll practice for 50 minutes, maybe an hour. I know a lot of teams at this level will practice an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't believe in that. I believe in getting absolute highest quality in the shortest amount of time. And again, that goes hand in hand with high standards. I really struggle with employees who think working hard is how many hours they're at the office. If they come in and they drink coffee for an hour and they're having conversations with everybody, that's not quality. That's quantity. So I'm always looking for quality. And I hope that answers your question.
Well, it definitely helps us understand your standards and what drove your success. Todd, anything you want to ask on that, or a different direction you want to go?
Just a comment I would make, right? Dave, you and I interviewed Navy SEAL Andrew Paul, about a year ago, and we talked about standards and how important that was. And Coach, you just mentioned about being efficient, right? The only way that you guys raised your standard up so high and made yourselves the best people with the best character on campus, highest grades, highest amount of charity, was to be efficient in everything that you do. So I feel like, you nailed it there. Can you give an example of a standard or two that the team has so that we can kind of understand how that plays out for your team and players?
That's a tough question. The one thing I do know is that because of the high standards, nobody wants to be the weak link. Nobody wants to be the guy in the bottom, whether it's, GPA. 2 years ago, one of our better players, he had the lowest GPA, and it wasn't super low, but it was lowest of our team. And he said, "Coach, that's never happening again. I'm not going to be the low guy." And I think that hit me, that, the high standards were good. They're motivating, but also you don't want to be the weak link. And we, like, language is really important to me. We use a lot of language. And I love using the phrase, or in the book, we talked about legacy. There's a phrase, sing your world into existence. And when we got here, and we were a bad team, we created a vision statement at the time. As I told you, we lost our last 17 games in a row during that first year. But during that stretch of 17 games, we created a vision statement. And in that vision statement, we sang our world into existence. We said it was constituted by three things. We wanted to develop character. We wanted to constitute a renowned culture, and that would lead to consistent national success. And so we've played in the last two national championship games. That's, we've won championships at different levels. But we determined that vision statement when we were in the middle of a 17-game losing streak. So singing your world into existence, I also believe that you have to write things down. You can say it, but then you have to write it down, because things that get written down get accomplished. So you have to say it, and that's my job. I know that with my players, I know what things I have to continually say. I keep saying this. Character is more important than skill. Character is more important. And they start, that's singing it, and then they believe it. But when there's things like our vision statement is written down. Our players see it, they read it, they know it. That's a more general goal, but if your goal is to sell, $1 million worth of real estate, write it down, have a plan. How are you going to make it happen? Say it. Tell the guy in the stall next to you, I'm going to sell $1 million worth of real estate. Because when you say it, and I tell the players this too, when these young kids come in, they're like, yeah, I want to play in the NHL. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to give you one more chance. Say it to my face. Say to me, you want to play in the NHL, because then I'm going to make you own it. Say it, and then you write it down, and then you tell me, then you're going to write down the goals. What are you going to do to get yourself to the NHL? And then we're going to look at that, and we're going to review it. And in 3 months, we're going to come back and look at what you wrote down. Have you achieved it yet? Are you making progress? So say it, write it down, because then you own it.
That is powerful and awesome. And it aligns with Win by Noon. Write it down, track it, be intentional about your day. Win by Noon. So this is a great question. It was actually came in, Deborah Bird asked it, and Jonathan Roach, who's a performance consultant, actually a Boston guy. So he's close by you. But Jonathan wanted to know if when you're in the recruiting process and, clearly you're looking for high character folks, if there was only one question you could ask in the recruiting process, what would it be?
I just started doing this summer because, as I said, I'm always you always have to be trying to find ways to do things better. And if we really trying to find the highest character kids, how are we finding that out? So I'm trying to ask them questions in the recruiting process. And two things that I've started asking is, you're a hockey player, you've played at high levels, everybody makes mistakes. Tell me an example of a game where you made a major mistake, and then tell me how you responded to it. It's basically, how do you respond to adversity? And it's important. It's, kids are a lot easier to coach when they can release a mistake. Sports are games of mistakes. If you make a mistake and you hold on to it, and it affects the way you play, that's an issue. So I ask them basically how they handle adversity. And then I also ask them, give me an example in life of where you were really pushed or challenged by somebody else, or a situation or a circumstance, and how did you handle it? So to me, those are two questions that I think help us get to their character and their makeup as an athlete and as a human.
Yeah, and their coachability. I mean, I think you're pulling a lot of how coachable is this human being going to be. Todd, any more questions come in? I've got a couple that have come in from the audience, but anything you want to hit? We're in the last 15 minutes, so let's get the most important ones out.
Well, I would say this, right? You guys are going to have some actions that Dave and I'll talk about at the end. I'm watching Dave and I are both feverishly writing notes as Coach is talking. You talk about mistakes. What are you seeing as the most common leadership mistakes that others make?
Well, I'll speak on my own behalf as a leader. They're usually verbal mistakes, and I'm fortunate. Like, I'm always trying to say the right things. Sometimes I'll make a little gaffe, and I've got assistant coaches up. It's usually to the team, and we'll walk out and they'll tell me right away, you shouldn't have said that. And it's sometimes it's to the extent of, getting away from, our culture is what's going to win. So, sometimes I might make a statement like, hey, these guys haven't won a game in 3 weeks. Why'd I say that? Like, it's not about, the opponent. It's about our standard. It's always about our culture. It's about what we do. It's usually when I, make a little gaffe like that. And as I said, leadership, what you say as the leader, and what you're singing is so important. And sometimes I make mistakes in what I say in leadership. But one thing, the mistake I try to never make is through my actions. Going back to the core values, I have to be living those core values. And I think I do a good job of that, of, how hard I work, my integrity. Compete is really important word for us. So I'm not on the ice competing, but my players have to know how hard I'm working to prepare them, to prepare practice. How intense am I? How passionate am I? So I feel like I make mistakes sometimes with what I say, but I want to believe I rarely make mistakes with, what they're seeing and what actions that I take.
Love that.
Todd, did you have a follow-up on that?
Well, I just wanted to follow up. One of the things that I also loved about the podcast I'd watch is that you have a system for numbering team members. There's a 1s, 2s, and 3s. Do you mind talking about that real quick? I think our audience would love that.
Sure. Yeah. This is the kind of a PG rated version of the talk. Another chapter of the book is no dickheads in the legacy book. And it's exactly what it is. No dickheads. It's basically, you can't have bad people in your program. And I've learned that high functioning people really struggle with low functioning people. It's very discouraging. You have these people working at this level, they're achieving to the standard, and there's, even if it's one person. So we rank our players in our program as 1, 2s, or 3s. And if you're a 1, you do everything right. You train right, you eat right, you play the game the right way, you achieve all the standards, and you're low maintenance. We don't need to worry about you. The 3s are the kids that just can't seem to get it together. They're continually getting in trouble, making mistakes, don't want to eat right. And you feel like you get to a point where you're like, this kid's just not going to figure it out. And, usually they move on their own, or it's a mutual agreement. So as a coach, most of my time is spent with the 2s. The 2s are the guys that are maybe maybe a little immature, just haven't figured things out yet. And so the 2s, we use the term that we provide a squeeze to them, because when you squeeze the 2, we believe that either they go down to a 3 or they go up to a 1. And the squeeze is nothing more than a lot of communication about the standards. Again, not expectations, what the standards are. And then you have to work with them. You have to support them. You got to mentor them. You got to show them the path and hold their hand. And again, if they start to figure it out, and they've got this mentoring from the coach, and they're going towards a 1, that squeeze starts to feel like a hug, we say, because they feel like, okay, this guy cares for me. He's helping me, he's carrying me to a 1. But if they don't have that in them, that squeeze starts to get suffocating. And once it's too suffocating, like, I can't do this, I'm out. So we try to get everybody to 1s. We have no 3s on this team. Last year's team had no 3s. We felt like we had 5 or 6 2s at the beginning of the year. And as I said previously, 2 of those 2s scored in the national championship game. So that's our job as leaders. It's to develop, make people better. And again, it wasn't about making them skate faster or shoot the puck better. It was about making them better people, helping them learn a routine that would make them more effective hockey player, more effective in the classroom. And that's character development, and a big part of our vision statement.
So I have a question I want to ask in a minute, but before I do that, I want to know, how much time do you give the 3s? What is your process for moving out the 3s, and how much time do you give them?
A fair amount of time. I mean, this is college sports. Basically, there's no movement within a season. So usually a freshman comes in, usually by the end of a freshman year, you'll have that conversation. Hey, I'm not sure this is the right place, unless they commit a very flagrant, violation of your rules. But again, shame on us if we're recruiting and a 3 gets to campus. As I said, we don't. When I got to UMass, inherited a team that had some 3s on it. But really we're working with ones and twos. The goal is to get everybody to ones. And again, we're usually in that 5 to 6 twos out of 26, 27 players. So the vast majority of the kids are ones. And that's what it's really rewarding to work with kids that are functioning at high levels. And, there's always going to be guys in the lower level of that. And we'll always be helping those guys because believe me, every time we get a 2 to a 1 status, we get a lot better as a hockey team. So again, spending a lot more time on character development and systems.
Yeah, and guys, obviously it's college hockey, and those twos that are threes probably put themselves in the portal. Like next season, they're not, they're moving. And I would just close on that. I know personally as a leader, a lot of my biggest business mistakes is just going too long, allowing threes to be in the culture, and no one's winning. That 3 isn't winning. The team isn't winning. So, I love the fact, and I love the fact that they all know where they stand. If they're 1, they know it. If they're 2, they know it. And if they're 3, they know it, and they self-select, or you give them some advice. So I want to make sure, I think, first of all, Willie Walker did a great job of that presentation, guys. And I put a link to it down below, the YouTube version of it. I mean, while we're going to have Coach create a 20-minute presentation, I recommend you consume all of his contents. To me, the only bummer is he doesn't have a book that we can study, because he's got a lot of great wisdom. And that Willie Walker podcast is awesome. I want to thank Joe Ewing, the president of Gem Mortgage. He sent it to me. Joe doesn't send me a lot of stuff. It's not like he's that guy that's like, Dave, you got to read this book. Dave, you got to get this. But when he gives me something, I know it's pure gold. So Joe, thank you for forwarding this podcast about a month ago. So I have one last question, and then Todd, feel free to ask the question after the question, or make sure an audience question gets asked. But when I named this conversation we're having, I named it around, our culture beats your culture. And I'll never forget 2 phrases. That was one phrase that you said, and then the uniquely sane. But talk about that real quick, because I just think that's so powerful. And in the mortgage business, every single loan, there's competition. There's multiple loan officers and lenders competing. Every realtor, there's a dozen loan officers. But when you can, like, our culture beats your culture, and you can compete with that philosophy, I think it's powerful. So would you mind sharing, where that phrase comes from, and give us some leadership there?
Sure. I've said it a few times. I think all success for teams I've coached is about the culture. It's not about the quality or the skill level. I've used the word, we try to amass character. Try to amass as much character as you can. My wife went into LLB this summer. She came out. She's like, I love going in there. Every single person in there is so nice and so helpful. And I was like, that's their culture. Like, that's what makes them successful. They know what their identity is. And I've not spoken about identity, but we have core values, which I believe you have core values, and that leads to an identity. And we have a really strong identity as a team. We know what we are. We know what makes us good. And to me, that's the strength of culture. So when I say our culture beats their culture, it's because we know exactly what we are, and we're really goddamn good at it. And so again, I get the players believing in the power of culture. We do so much work on culture. My mentor, who's our sports psychologist for the team, we do a ton of mental training, mental skills training with our players. They see how much I believe, and the rest of the staff believes in culture, and that bleeds down. And so when we go into a game, I can't say to them, there's a lot of teams I can't say, we're a better team than these guys are. Because, I mean, skill wise, there's a lot of teams in our league have a better skill level, but will beats skill. If you throw a puck in the corner I don't care how much skill you have. If I have more will than you, I'll come out of that corner with the puck. And that's how I believe you win. Skill is great. Skill is often you're born with a certain level of skill, and people just, they ride that wave, and eventually that wave dies out. But will is something you can work on. I mean, you can work on skill too, but will to me is more important. I would take a high character player over a high skill player any day of the week. And again, when you can amass character, amass that will, boy, is it powerful. And when all have the same mindset that that's more important than skill, because believe me, we play a lot of teams that have a lot of skill, and they think that skill is going to carry them. It does for a little bit, but if you look at teams that win championships, any level, defense wins, right? You hear that all the time. Defense wins. Well, what's defense? It's commitment, it's will, it's hard work. It's all those values that are part of character.
Do you mind really quick just sharing one or two of the mental, you said we do mental exercises. What are one or two of those that you guys focus on or that you do ritualistically?
Yeah, we do imagery. We do positive self-talk. We do deep breathing exercises. We monitor heart rate variability. A lot of positive self-talk. So we spend a considerable amount of time on it.
It's so powerful, guys. It doesn't sound like your sports psychologist has a book or a podcast. If he does, tell us how we can follow him. But if we can't get that from the coach here, follow Trevor Moad. He's creating a lot of great content and has a lot of, and I interviewed him too. So check it out in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. Does your guy have a podcast or any way that we can learn from him?
No, he's
secret weapon. I'm not even going to ask you his name.
No, he'll be mad if I give it to you. You talk about humility. He flies under the radar. He's excellent. He does not want to be in the spotlight. I guess that's a lack of humility on my part, but he's outstanding. He won't write a book, and he'll probably be mad at me if I write one. So,
all right. So Todd, we're in the last 3 minutes. Any last questions, or let's go into wrap up mode?
We had another question from Deborah Bird. She was asking about recruiting. Now that you're no longer worst, you're first. How has recruiting changed for you?
Yeah, it's obviously, I don't want to say easier, but it's different. Certain level of players that, 5 years ago had no interest in hearing what we had to say. Everybody's listening to us now. But I started the chat today talking about how just this past week, we were just recognized as the top development program in college hockey. And that's quite a statement for recruiting purposes. As I said, every kid thinks they're going to play in the NHL. Say, well, you should probably go to the school that's going to develop you the best to get there. So that should help us a lot. But you also find in recruiting that a lot is based off of history and tradition. And, our history, my history here at UMass is still relatively short. The last 3 or 4 years have been great. But kids who've grown up, they haven't grown up hearing about UMass being a strong team. So for years, that's where we're still, behind the 8 ball. And all we can do is keep working on our culture, and we believe that helps us win games. But we also believe, and the thing I like about UMass is that it's its own filter. It's almost a natural filter. And if you're a kid that grew up wanting to go to a different school, and you can't see and feel what we do here, then it's probably not the right place for you anyways. And there's a ton of good hockey players, and the ones that come here and we give them this spiel, and we're really honest in recruiting, and we're like, this is exactly how it is here. You might be a 2 and you're going to get squeezed. And if you can't handle that, it's probably not the right place for you. But the kids that come here are the ones that realize they're usually pretty high character kids, and they get a sense that they're going to be challenged here. But you know what? They've been challenged their whole life, and they know that that's what they need. So it's its own natural filter. Believe me, recruiting is always a struggle, even when you're on top of your game. But that's all right. Keeps you honest, keeps you working.
Love it. Love it. So I'm going to give you guys some action plans, then I'll let Dave close us out. I would say there's a few things that I think you all need to do, right? Regardless of whether you're a producer or whether you're a leader. First off, Dave interviewed Coach Bill Hart last week on really how to take listening to something like this and turn it into execution. So you all have had pages of notes like I have. You're going to have to listen to this again, and then you're going to have execute, but that would be a great interview to watch as you're prepping for how to do that. I think if you're an individual loan officer, think about that. Say it, write it, own it, right? That's the whole idea. You got to own it. So think about what's your vision and what are your standards. And I think if you're a leader, you've got to have your team watch this. And then I hate to say it, but you got to take a deep look, right? How many 2s and 3s do you have, right? Dave kind of said it, as a leader, that was my biggest failure always, was allowing 3s to hang around too long, right? Coach said 1s don't want to play with 3s, right? 1s want to play with other 1s. And you probably should be taking a deep look and saying, okay, what 2s do I have that I can squeeze up to be a 1? And what 2s do I have that I need to suffocate out to be a 3 and then help them find the door? I think that was hugely valuable. I can't wait to see your content at the Modern Mortgage Summit. Thanks, Coach, for connecting with us and being part of our community. We're really grateful for you and your time.
My pleasure.
Well, I am definitely a UMass hockey team. So go UMass hockey. I'm not, although I have we have a friend who plays on your lacrosse team. I'm going to go with Syracuse for lacrosse, but dude, you're amazing, Coach. I really appreciate your leadership, the message that you have. I think it's super important. It makes, I don't care whether you're mortgage, real estate, whatever business you're in. I mean, if you can get behind the concept of better people, make better teammates, win championships. So I hope you got value from this. Give us a like down below. If you did, share this with your friends, share this with your kids. It will be in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. Also, Todd, I think we might want to turn this into a podcast. Todd and I are going to be doing a podcast soon, and this might be a good launch for our podcast.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. Let's turn you all into modern advisors, and this will certainly be a great kickoff for that. Super appreciate you guys all hanging out with us for an hour. Thanks again, Coach. And as always, Dave, thanks for bringing the leadership you bring to the industry.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great day and great weekend. Thanks again, Coach.
Thanks, guys.